Ain't gonna hit you, but I'm gonna grab you.
It was shake you right. It was shake you like, and that's it. That's it.
So let me get this straight. So Lizzo sees Chris Brown, and because she's a fan, she says you're my favorite person, and she posted, and then the cancel culture goes wild.
Yes.
Okay.
But it wasn't just because of Chris Brown. It was also because she did a TikTok with Soulja Boy. So
oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
So she said Brown was her favorite artist, and she did a TikTok with Soulja Boy, and they said that
both of them are women beaters.
Pretty much.
Meanwhile, Woody Allen is around this motherfucker free as a bird, married to his daughter, still making movies.
Yep.
Well, he ain't made shit in a long time, but I hear you.
He ain't in jail, but anywho.
Exactly.
So what is this? This idea that there is no, because I'm thinking about this and thinking about in terms of, you hear about this, the minute someone gets an opportunity to do something, there's always this group that comes out and they dig through and they're like, well, here's your college photo when you were, saying these things, and you be 70 years old. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
Like, they'll go and
don't get me wrong. Sometimes when people bring stuff up from the past, it is indeed bullshit. But like Trudeau, I think it was it Trudeau who the Prime Minister of Canada who was in blackface?
Yeah.
Like it was like 20. Well, that is a little different. Like, I mean, you might have been 21, but you knew at 21 that it's inappropriate to be in fucking blackface. Right. So some stuff like that, then I can understand. But other stuff where people made comments or they may have said something, and let's say they come back and they've atoned for their mistakes, like the fact that they think that no one can make a mistake and that those mistakes can't be corrected or you can't apologize and then become a better person after those mistakes. That is the issue that I have with the quote unquote cancel culture, or anybody for that matter that disagrees with your opinion or how you feel about something. Just because
that's everybody today in mainstream. Like you think about like Kevin Hart, who's a comedian, and his job is to make jokes that push the limits. So 15 years ago, I don't know if it's 15 years ago, he makes a joke about his son being gay or not wanting his son to be gay. And then he gets a host the Oscars. And then here they come. Well, no, because 15 years ago, you said some very, inflammatory things about our community, and you're not qualified to host the Oscars. And it's just like, and he said it. He was like, it was a joke. That's what I do. I tell jokes, right? And it was 15 years ago, and I've grown from that time. And if I had to make the choice again, I wouldn't tell that joke again, right? Because I'm 15 years older and wiser.
Right.
But see, some things I don't think you need to apologize for. A joke is just that. A joke.
So if you can recall, he made it very clear that he wasn't apologizing. I ain't apologizing for that. That was a joke. Then the white people that signed his check called him, and his apology was out in 160 characters or less on Twitter the next day.
Yeah, but
we still don't have no power. Yeah. Well, so we might have fame, we might have fortune, but we ain't got no power.
Well, he still didn't host the Oscars, so by
that point, the damage was done because he came out. So remember, he's a good Negro. Not saying that that's what he's aspiring to be, but that's what they're going to treat him as. And the minute he steps out of being a good Negro, he's now soured. Yeah. So when he came out and was like, "Yeah, I ain't apologizing," he soured himself on the people that cut checks. And so it didn't matter what he did after that. It did not matter.
Agreed.
I mean, that's true. I don't know. Like I am very much a man of principle, but there's some stuff that I'm just not like. If I'm talking about my son and my family, it's one thing for me to say, I sure hope my son don't end up gay. Doesn't mean I have a problem with gay people. I'm just saying I hope my son doesn't end up gay. Like, and that's not, and I understand that in today's society, those things can be misconstrued or taken as you saying you don't support gay rights or, you know, things of the LGBTQ community. That means that could be misconstrued as that. But that's just your person. You can have a personal preference to say, hey, I don't want my son to be like that. If he is, then I'll still love him. But if you're going to give me a choice, and my choice is that he doesn't go down that road. Like, to me, there's nothing wrong.
You can't say that because the alphabet group, and I love them, that's not acceptable. Like, that's not acceptable. You have to be like, I'm okay if my son becomes my daughter and my daughter becomes my son. And there's no personal preference in this space where we're all very much taught to think and behave and respond in a certain way. You don't have the privilege of doing that. When you do something different, you're an outcast and you're shamed for it. There's no bounds to it, right? We saw this summer when Chauncey Billups, right, the former Pistons, now an NBA head coach, here they come now questioning whether or not in 2021 he can be a head coach because of an allegation from 1997. So I'm like, okay, let me be clear. I support women. I think women and men can be and have been horrific victims of sexual assault and everything in between. But I guess my question is, what we've been doing since 1997?
Right.
What we've been doing? What we've been doing? He done played in the NBA. He was an NBA champion. He's gone on to be an assistant coach for several years.
On ESPN, shoot around.
He's been on ESPN, and now that he's being considered to be a head coach, it's like, well, no, because 24 years ago, this thing, and I'm just like, well, wait a minute, when is it over? He dealt with it, I'm assuming in 97. The situation was settled, and now here we are back again.
So this is going to probably generational. They're not generational. From a generation perspective, millennials are way more sensitive than we are. Like, and by that I mean, back in the day, if I was growing up in the neighborhood, somebody called me skinny, thin, or whatever the case may be, which happened on a regular basis, my response wasn't, "You're bullying me, and I can't believe you would say something like that." My response was to find whatever their weakness was and to go back off on that. It was real simple, but it was never personal. Like, if somebody started clowning me and I clowned them back, we see each other like 5 minutes later the next day and everything was fine. Like, it wasn't like a personal attack on me. At least we didn't take it that way, but they do. They take it as a attack.
I think it's cultural, because I'll tell you, some years ago, my daughter had to be second grade, and the teacher called me and was like, "Hey, you know, can you talk to her about using words that are very hurtful? And, you know, this we have to be careful not to be bullying our playmates." And I was like, "Well, what did she say?"
Right.
And she was like, "Well, she said the S word." And I was like, well, I'm like, I don't usually say shit. Now, fuck, motherfucker, bitch. Like, one of those, she could have for sure flew out, and I'd have been like, guilty. But I'm like, shit ain't really in my repertoire. So I'm like, she said shit, ma'am? She was like, no. Oh, no. She said, shut up. And we just really need to make sure that we're not using these words, because these words hurt. And I said, I'm sorry. You called me in the middle of my workday to tell me my daughter told somebody to shut up?
Right.
I said, okay. So I knew then we're doomed as a society. Like, we're just absolutely doomed as a society.
But you just mentioned you think it's cultural. I think maybe at one point in time it was cultural. I don't think it's cultural anymore.
Really? Yeah.
I think it's the sign of the times. I don't think anybody can say anything to anybody that's not, I mean, even if you don't agree with, I mean, if you look at some of these message boards, even if you don't agree with what somebody says, it just takes on this very visceral tone. It's not like, oh, okay, well, with the exception of something like Trump. There's like, if you like Trump, then we have nothing to talk about, right? But if we're talking about, you know, I don't know, Reagan versus Bush, or, you know, Carter. I mean, it's other things that we can talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no line anymore. Everything is you either with me or you with them.
Yeah.
On everything.
Right.
But I'm just trying to understand when does the line get drawn? When does somebody get to deal with something? And this part I do think is cultural in a way. I mean, I think the Me Too movement has changed some of that because I think white men have gotten caught up in that more so than anything. Mm-hmm. But I do think in many ways this stuff is culture, especially when you look at athletes, right? And how they view athletes and how they talk about athletes and particularly Black athletes. Like you would think Cam Newton has been arrested 7 times on 4 DUIs, beat his wife on public TV, and the way that they talk about him, Cam ain't never been in no trouble.
Right.
Ain't never been in no trouble.
He's never been in any trouble, but he does dress like Rumpelstiltskin. Eyes-ish.
Yeah, that's fair. But so did Marv Albert. Like, I mean, I get it.
No, Marv Albert didn't dress like
got in trouble.
Yeah, Marv Albert put on women's underwear and walked around and left teeth marks on
the ass.
Cam dresses like a guy out of a fairy tale who would lead you down a primrose path that listen. He is dressed worse. He should have been. Hold on, let me say this. Cam should have been the Scarecrow in The Wiz. He did Nipsey Russell would have been proud based on Cam's appearance. Okay, now go ahead.
But here's my point though, and here's the juxtaposition I'm trying to make. They talk big shit about him. You would think that Cam Newton just got out of jail the way that the media talks about him. But they will laud Ben Roethlisberger as if he doesn't have multiple settled out of court sexual assault settlements against him.
So I'm gonna beg to differ just a smidge. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying.
Don't beg to differ. Just differ.
No. Okay. Well, you're right. Forget the begging. I just differ because Ben Roethlisberger gets. You're right. I'm not saying that he doesn't get the admonishing that he should get. However, they don't talk about Cam like that. They talk about Cam from the perspective Cam's attitude and the way he carries himself and his kind of laissez-faire way of kind of handling things is what gets talked about. They don't really just like totally tarnish his character, but they will tarnish him for saying, hey, we don't feel like he works hard enough or sometimes some things of that nature. I think it's a little bit different scenario. Like, I guess what I'm saying is Cam has given them a reason to kind of say something. Ben has too, but they don't talk about Ben's transgressions because he is a Caucasian quarterback. And what I'm saying is Cam doesn't have those same transgressions.
I don't disagree, but I feel it's the same thing with like a Terrell Owens. Like you would think that Terrell Owens beat women in the middle on a Dallas Cowboy turf. Like he just did it right there at Jerry Jones' house, whatever it's called. And it's like to the fact that he couldn't even get into the Hall of Fame. And it's like, well, what'd he do? Can anybody tell me what he did?
Yeah, I can tell you what he did. Like you can't be if you're dependent upon getting into the Hall of Fame based on other people voting on you, you can't be an ass.
How was he an ass? How was he an ass?
He was an ass throughout his career talking to the media and like just not doing stuff that they want to. He's been an ass. Now, with that being said, Freeze and I might be a smidge biased on this because D. Magnesia is our boy. And I'm not going to sit there and tell no story. T.O., one of the greatest receivers of all time. But speaking as a fellow Sagittarian, and I don't give a fuck if he hear it, he don't act like we act. He got a whole lot of whole tendencies in him. And yes, I said it. So, I don't give a fuck. He got a bunch of whole tendencies. Sagittarian men typically don't act like him. But he on a whole different level. His skill level cannot be denied.
Well, wait a minute. You also didn't grow up wishing the man across the street was your father because he was such a good father, only to find out he was your actual father that impregnated your 15-year-old mother.
Okay, go to therapy. Go to therapy and handle that shit. Don't be a hoe to me and everybody else. I don't give a fuck about that. Fuck him.